Sami, I gotta tell you, man, that I love doing this podcast with you.
For sure, Ian. It's so much fun. To be honest, I've never thought I would be a podcast host. So thanks for pushing me to do this with you.
You're welcome. But also, we gotta thank Anchor FM.
Absolutely. It's everything we need in one place. And they also help us distribute our podcast on Spotify, Apple, and all the other platforms.
It's freaking awesome. So easy.
So, for all of you out there listening, if you're like us and have been thinking of hosting your own show, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to episode 16 of Down the Pit. My name is Sami Merdinian.
And I'm Ian Loew.
Our guest today is Australian classical guitarist Scott Borg.
Scott is a musical genius, having received the highest honor from the Australian Music Examinations Board. He has performed with and without shoes all over the world and has been featured on ABC Classic FM, NPR, as well as MTV.
In our conversation, we will talk about his upbringings in rural Australia, performing for cows, his upcoming projects, kangaroos versus camels, sports, the importance of ethics and being a good person, and a lot of guitar talk.
Please subscribe and leave us a review. You can always support our podcast for as little as 99 cents a month by visiting www.downthepit.com/sponsors. We would like to thank our corporate sponsor, US Pave. For any and all your commercial and residential paving needs, please visit uspave.com. US Pave, the national paving company. Hey Scott, we'd like to properly welcome you to Down the Pit, and to make you feel comfortable, please let me start off by saying, Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi.
I'm actually meant to say the oi, oi, oi part.
Oh, I messed it up. I'm sorry. So, Scott, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Berry in Australia, about a population just a little over 1,000 people. Kind of like a rural community. We had a few acres. We had a hobby farm of, cows and chickens and stuff like that. So everyone knew each other. We never wore shoes. Always left our keys in the car. Everyone knew everyone's business.
You didn't have to lock your doors?
Oh yeah, the front door was always wide open. People would just come and go, and it was just a really nice, kind of simple, lovely upbringing. It was very nice.
So, do you come from a musical family?
Yeah, actually, on my dad's side, he's got many, many brothers and sisters, and all of them played music. My dad was a drummer, actually, and kind of deep down inside, I think he always wanted to be a guitarist, and so I think that desire to want to be a guitarist kind of got thrusted on my brother and myself. My brother's no longer a guitarist; he's gone off into other fields, but yeah, we just grew up doing the usual things that guitarists do as kids, playing chords and singing and playing guitar at the same time, and then slowly developed into kind of something a little bit more important in our lives, and we wanted to explore it in different ways.
How were the music programs for kids in Australia?
The Australian system, they've actually got a really fantastic system. It's kind of loosely based off the Trinity College system from England, and where there's kind of formative way of progressing. So we really did follow that kind of system. For us, it was a little tough. We didn't really know any other classical guitarists.
You didn't study privately at all?
No. I started the first 7 years with my dad. My dad would look at the music books and kind of be one lesson ahead of us, and then kind of just show us what we had to do for that lesson, for that day. And we definitely, as time progressed, we had guitar teachers, and most of them were usually about an hour and a half away. So every week we would jump in the car and go for a lesson, drive an hour and a half each way. It wasn't until I was about maybe 16 or something like that, had really kind of intense lessons with, a kind of a a classical guitar teacher with like a solid name in Australia. And so, we would drive up to Sydney once a week, which was 6 hour round trip to have lessons.
So a very different beginning to your normal start for any of us. Your dad not being a guitar player, he was teaching you, and how far you come from just those initial lessons.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we were really kind of, had in our lives was always music. Like there was always music on it, like every single time. I remember growing up and playing all of the tunes. My dad would always be on the drum kit playing along with me as well. And of course I was doing, duos with my brother. But one of the really interesting things about the Australian system, which I think is pretty different to the system over here in America, is that it's a very well-rounded kind of system from the very initial stages. As you progress in performance, you're expected to have the same kind of level of proficiency when it comes to like music history and music theory and e-training as well. So I definitely know that, over here, like especially at the college that I teach at, a lot of students come in as great performers, and then as soon as they're like, oh my gosh, I have to do like dictation or something like that, and they're like, what is that? Like, what is an interval and everything like that. So one of the great things about that system is that it gives you a really, really well-rounded education.
Would you say it's better in Australia than in America?
It's different. It's really hard to kind of put one against the other. I mean, one of the great things about America is this like abundance of just brilliance everywhere, like in every single field of music. You can turn the corner and you can just chat to someone and they're like, oh, I used to play the blue note or something like that, most nights. And to see or be kind of acquainted with a really world-class musician in Australia, like especially where I grew up, was a very, very rare thing indeed. And so, I think it kind of goes both ways. I think when it comes to formulating a well-rounded education, I do think that things like the Trinity College system, and in Australia it's called the AMEB, and now Canada has a system as well called the Royal College system. I think that these systems really kind of nurture and enhance a kind of a budding musician's education. But of course, trying to get those extra elements, of music, like, being able to see like world-class concerts, or, just being able to be in touch with fantastic, musicians, it was tough.
Hmm.
So where do you do your studies?
So for undergrad, I went to a place called the University of Wollongong, which is a place in Australia, about an hour and a half away from where I grew up. And I was actually doing a double degree there. So after high school, I really wasn't sure if music was the avenue I wanted to do. Luckily, I got good enough marks to be able to go straight into law. And so when I was in undergrad, I was doing a double degree of law and music. The way that it's done there is that it's a 5 year program, and the first 3 years you kind of concentrate on the music aspect, and then the last 2 years, while kind of simultaneously doing some law subjects, and then the final 2 years you just really kind of focus on law. And just after I finished the music degree, I really wasn't feeling the law, and to be honest with you, I wasn't a very good law student at all. I was actually a pretty terrible law student.
You fought the
And
law and the law won.
oh yeah, I mean, he pulverized me. I mean, it was definitely like a first round knockout. It was pretty bad. And I just kind of made a decision there and then, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make a choice if it's gonna be music or law. And so I decided to audition for Juilliard, and it was just like, if I get into Juilliard, I'll do music. If I don't get in, I'll just stick with law. I came over to America, first time I'd ever been on an airplane,
Wow.
which was kind of crazy.
When was
And
that?
that was in 2001. I came over for an audition. Maybe it was 2002. My memory is horrible with dates. My green card interview was like one of the worst times of my entire life. I got every single question wrong. But yeah,
Wait,
and
wait, wait,
so
don't, wait, wait. Let's not go past that. What do you mean you got every question wrong? Like what?
oh
Let's delve into this a little bit.
Oh, it was a horrible situation. When I was trying to get my green card through marriage, actually, we had brought in all of the information and all of the albums of all of us together and all the trips we'd been on. The immigration agent, or whatever they're called,
Officer.
officer, yeah, decided to just ask me questions about dates, about when I entered America at this year and at what location. and I got every single question wrong. Like, I mean, I even said my wife's name incorrectly. It was a horrible thing. And we had organized like a big celebration afterwards with a bunch of friends, and as soon as we arrived, like everyone knew that like something was wrong, and my wife was like, the celebration's off, that's it, like he's gonna be deported, he's gonna be sent back home. But
He doesn't even know how to say my name.
yeah, he doesn't even know how to say my name. And it was tough questions like, what month did you arrive into America in 2003? And I was like, it had to be August or September because I was arriving for school, and it must have been one of those months. And it's like, well, pick a month. And I was like, August. And it was like, well, no, you arrived in September. And I was like, oh, okay then. And it was like, what airport did you fly into? And I was like, well, it was either San Francisco or LA because those were the two hubs I used to always fly into. And it's like, well, choose a airport. And I was like, San Francisco. And it was like, nope, you flew into LA that year. And so it was
Haha,
a.
Seems like
gotcha.
a very fair way of giving a green card to someone who asked. A toss up.
I flew over to America, had no idea what to expect. I got off the plane in the middle of March. It was freezing cold. I was in shorts and flip-flops. That year there was a massive snowstorm like during that time, and had to be about 10 degrees. I'd never experienced anything of it in my entire life. And the first thing I did was like call out my mom from the hotel. Had no idea that hotel phones cost so much, and at the end, I racked up a $500 phone bill, which was just horrible. But it was all worthwhile. I got in and spent 2 years there, and that was a really just wonderful experience. Actually, where I met Sami,
Hmm.
which was really cool. And
Yeah,
and
the
then
highlight, right?
sorry, oh, it was definitely the highlight of Juilliard. And then after that, I spent 2 years at Yale with you two crazy guys. And then I took a year off, and then I came back and I did a doctorate up at New England Conservatory up in Boston.
Would you say America is a culture shock for you, or is it the same as Australia?
Oh, I mean, it was a massive culture shock. I remember the first day I moved to New York, going from a town of 1,000 people to New York City was insane. Walking around the streets of my town, I never used to wear shoes, and first thing I did was walk up 66th Street with no shoes on.
Did you
And
contract any diseases?
I mean, luckily I didn't. I probably should have doing that, but I definitely got like a lot of weird looks. Originally I was staying in one of the graduate dorms there, which was in, it wasn't in the most kind of desirable area. I left my door open because I thought that everyone in the place was all students of Juilliard. I had no idea. So I thought, okay, well, all these people are students of Juilliard. So I just left the front door open, and all of my roommates were not very happy about that. But
Everybody's a good person.
oh yeah, everyone's a very good person. So
Hmm.
it was a very big culture shock. But for me, I think that being Australian, there's this kind of great reciprocation of kind of kindness, and because Australians like Americans and Americans seem to like Australians, and so
Hmm.
there was always that kind of kinship there, which was always quite nice. And so it was, although it was a culture shock, it was like pretty easy to make friends and to kind of feel welcome. So that was always nice.
People liked your accent.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, the accent does half the job for me, so it's fantastic.
Are you like Sami and like try to use it all the time to pick up women? Not now because you're married, but I'm
Oh
talking
yeah, I
prior.
mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he had the accent and the guitar.
Dual
that's
threat.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, why else do people play guitar? Because it certainly isn't for money. So I mean, you would use the Australian card, as much as possible. I remember, one really funny story, which I told the group of friends that I used to hang out with a fair bit at Juilliard. I remember it was the first week we were all sitting down at the cafeteria, and everyone asked me what I used to do back in Australia, or what the craziest job I ever had was. And, I told them that I was something called a whacker. And they're like, what? And I was like, well, and I said, during the Sydney Olympics, there were tourists everywhere. Like Sydney was completely packed. And I said, I'm not sure whether you guys are aware of this, but Australia had a massive koala bear problem. And I said, and one of the places that all the koalas used to kind of hang out on was the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And so my job was to go up on top of the bridge with a cricket bat and hit them off the bridge into the harbour. And everyone believed me. It was fantastic. So, yeah.
Got me.
So, Scott, moving forward, you teach at a college. What college is that, and where do you live?
I teach at a college called Montgomery College, which is in Rockville in Maryland, and I live in Greenbelt, Maryland, which is just outside the DC Beltway.
We want you to clarify that rumor, which I don't know if it's true, but our old roommate Wayne, who's been on the podcast, told us that you met your now wife, Sarah Schramm Borg, on our futon on our living room at a social gathering. Is this true?
Well, I think that there is a certain truthness to it. The first time that we actually went anywhere as a couple was to one of the Kelly House parties. You can kind of say that, we had met, obviously at the School of Music a fair bit and everything like that. We'd actually, funnily enough, met 2 years earlier in New York without even realizing. But yeah, the first time that we were kind of like an official couple, I don't think anybody knew we were a couple, but I think that after that Kelly House party, people realized that we were a couple. So
You're saying there was extracurricular activities going on the futon?
no, no, no. Like, I mean, we were
Okay.
definitely hanging out and like having some drinks and everything like that. And I think that like everyone at the music school knew it was no secret that I was kind of crazy about her. I remember at a lot of parties, like especially you and me, Sami, had like many conversations about it. But no, no, no. We always showed like a very high level of decorum.
Of
When
course, of
when it
course.
came to that. So.
Yeah, Wayne actually has a photo of the two of you guys on the futon.
What a creep.
Yeah. Okay. Before moving forward to the first espresso, can you tell us your beliefs in guitar orchestras?
I'm really sorry. Can you say that again? I had no idea what you said then, Ian.
Is that Floridian accent?
Can you tell us your belief in guitar orchestras?
Guitar orchestras, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
look, I've been a part of guitar orchestras for a very long time now. Being a guitarist, it's a very lonely kind of existence. A lot of the time is just spent sitting in a practice room, just like playing. I mean, it's kind of crazy. We don't usually have the opportunity of playing with other musicians very often. A lot of even like a lot of chamber music, guitar's neglected a lot. And when it kind of comes down to it, like when you think about one of the most kind of sociable instruments out there, like I mean, it's got to be the guitar. Like how many times have we been at a party or something like that where somebody just breaks out a guitar and everyone starts singing? And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of seemed to me quite crazy that guitarists didn't get together and produce music together, and kind of sharing that in this kind of idea of producing sound and producing a product. And being part of a guitar orchestra once before when I was in Sydney, I kind of felt that there was a bit of a need for it to kind of happen here in America. There were several pockets around America where it was happening, but there was nothing happening. When I first started mine, I was in the Boston area. I think it's a very effective way for people to kind of share an experience together and be able to express themselves.
Well, for those of us that are
Yeah.
unfamiliar with guitar orchestras, can you tell us how they work and why do you have the passion for it?
Well, first of all, it's just imagine, most guitar orchestras are going to be in four parts, and with multiple people per part. So, it is kind of, similar to just say like a string orchestra or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
So it's like a guitar quartet, but multiplied
yeah,
by.
exactly. But within that, the most kind of common idea is that you'll have that kind of guitar quartet kind of idea with multiple parts playing in unison. But then a lot of times, those parts will kind of spread out into octaves, and so then you've got eight
Hmm.
parts, to kind of get like a much kind of fuller sound. There's also like an opportunity to use different types of guitars, kind of alto guitars or bass guitars, to kind of get a much bigger range. Especially over the past 10 years, there's been a kind of a great interest in shown in guitar orchestras. A lot of people are writing guitar orchestra music. It used to just be that you'd get like, just say like a Telemann piece for four violins or something like that, just scrub out violin and just writing guitar and be like, hey, guitar orchestra piece. But people are actually kind of specifically writing now for guitar orchestra, and actually kind of writing quite expansive work, 20, 30-minute pieces, which is quite fantastic. And, kind of guitar orchestra with like another instrument as a soloist as well. And one of the things about the guitar, which does make this instrument far superior than other instruments, is the range of colors we can produce. I say that just because, there's not really other aspects of the guitar which is superior to other instruments at all, actually. So one of the great things about it is, playing six strings at once, being able to kind of create these beautiful kind of bassoon-like sounds, and then all of a sudden, be able to sound like you're opening up a tin can. So a lot of variety of sounds, and I think that's one of the reasons why guitar orchestra is appealing, especially if you're doing an arrangement of like an orchestral piece or something. You can definitely try to kind of imitate those different instruments on the guitar. Like, of course, we lack the ability of sustain, but, especially if there's like multiple guitars, we at least kind of have that impression of sustain as well.
Also, another thing of the guitar is that you can play a bass line, harmony, and melody at the same time, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to move on to our first espresso section of the podcast. This is where we're just looking for instant answers without thinking. The first word or words that come to your mind, Scott.
Sure, got it, mate.
Here we go.
Yep.
Favorite instrument beside yours?
Clarinet.
Favorite festival you've performed at?
Oh, it's this festival down in Peru. It was just mind-blowingly great. It was amazing.
What type of strings do you use?
Augustine Regals.
Favorite guitar maker?
I'm going to say Steve Connor.
Favorite quote?
Vujade, which is the feeling that you've never been here before. So it's kind of like a play on deja vu, but it's like the opposite.
Favorite cartoon when you were a kid?
Did you guys have Samurai Pizza Cats?
No, but I wish I did. Actually.
it was these cats that were like ninjas and like samurais, and they ate pizza. So it was kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but they were cats. It was weird, but anyway.
Awesome.
I'm sure there is a Spanish name to that.
Gato.
It does ring a bell.
Favorite guitarist, past and present?
There's so many. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm not actually going to say a classical guitarist. I'm going to say an electric guitarist named John Petrucci.
Favorite guitar orchestra?
I mean, it's got to be mine, right?
There it is.
Yeah.
What's the name?
At the moment, I run the Baltimore Classical Guitar Society Orchestra.
Most inspirational artist?
I'm going to say Prince.
Favorite composer?
Sibelius. Just quickly, and I think that Sami will probably attest to this, nothing can beat his violin concerto. I mean, that thing is just ridiculous.
Favorite TV series?
It's a toss-up between The Wire and Breaking Bad.
Favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Favorite actress?
I mean, I'm going to say Kate Beckinsale, just because I had like an absolute crush on her growing up.
Favorite restaurant in New Haven?
Ivy Noodle.
Favorite sport?
Cricket.
Favorite country to visit?
Switzerland.
Favorite hobby?
I don't really have any. It's horrible. Maybe I'm going to say home renovation. I don't know. I'm always fixing something in this house. I mean, I've got to call it a hobby or else it goes crazy. Yeah.
Favorite adult beverage?
Scotch.
Are you a koala or a kangaroo type of guy?
I'm a kangaroo guy. Absolutely. I mean, koalas are just stinky and just horrible creatures.
Favorite piece to perform?
It's a good one. So it's this Russian piece. It's called the Princess Toys. It's like this kind of epic, like 32-minute piece that just explores everything on the guitar with all these weird, quirky sounds and everything. It's got like a great storyline to it. It's pretty crazy.
Favorite Australian saying?
Probably no worries. Just because I say no worries so often.
And last but not least, a useless talent.
A useless talent. Oh my gosh, I've got so many.
Top 3.
For some reason, I find it hard just to click one finger, like to snap one finger. I only snap 2 fingers. And so it's like a double snap instead of just like one finger. I find it hard just to snap one finger. But 2, I can do it quite simply. Most useless
Can we hear
one.
it?
Yeah, sure. So the double one is least. I'm not sure whether it's going to come out like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like a triplet.
No, it's
All right.
2.
I heard a triplet. I heard.
Wait,
3,
did I really meet you at music school now here? I mean, what was...
Did you hear 2, Sami? I heard 3. I heard a triplet.
Maybe a little echo.
Oh, that could be it. Well, that concludes our first expressional portion. Sami, any answers surprise you at all or intrigue you?
I thought he was going to say rugby or Australian football, but he went with cricket.
Yeah, I mean, look, rugby is fantastic. I mean, going to a rugby game is like one of the most exciting things you'll ever experience in your life. With rugby, it's non-stop action. With like no pads, no helmets, just like raw people just kind of trying to literally kill each other on the field. And like for 80 minutes non-stop. Whereas in American football, and I'm probably going to hurt some people's feelings here, but what is it? It's kind of like an average game. There's only like 4 minutes of action.
Yeah,
Is,
something like,
is, is
well,
that is that
each
true?
play is like 5 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, mind you though, like, I mean, there's no way I would ever want to be on the field and get hit by one of those guys on the field. I mean, that's just like a one way to a coma. I mean, that's just like crazy. It's insane.
So do you actually play cricket?
I used to play cricket growing up a fair bit. And actually, I grew up with a lot of people who made like the Australian cricket team, which, well, I mean, I didn't grow up with them directly, but, I remember when we were playing cricket, some people on the opponent team were, kind of future Australian cricketers and everything like that. But I remember one day when I was, 17, I was body surfing and a big wave came and I hit a sandbar and I dislocated my shoulder. And ever since, my shoulder's been pretty messed up. So that was the end of my cricket career. So,
The old sandbar injury.
oh yeah. At least it wasn't like a shark bite or a crocodile bite or something like that.
Yep.
So
Did you know Steve Irwin, by the way?
I did not. Although I have been to his zoo and it's pretty awesome, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of him. I think I might have cried when he died.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because for the longest time, Steve Irwin wasn't really big in Australia. Like, I mean, he was much bigger here in America, and then all of a sudden, everyone kind of really started to love him in Australia, and it was definitely a kind of like a national tragedy when that happened.
Tell us about some of your festivals that you are the artistic director of.
I started a little festival at the school where I teach at Montgomery College, and it's been going on for a couple of years now. It's been growing each year. We always try to get wide variety of people to come in, of styles. I know a lot of festivals, kind of concentrate just on classical music and everything like that, especially in the kind of the guitar festival area. I have a 3 day festival, and one day we'll focus on blues, one day we'll focus on classical, and another day we'll focus on something else like jazz or flamenco or something like that. And so usually we try to get artists in to kind of represent that. One of the things that I do love so much about the guitar is there's so many different ways that people relate to the guitar. So I really wanted to kind of show how diverse and kind of how universal the guitar is. In that as well, we have like a really kind of big community element to it where we invite ensembles from the DMV area, and also we have a competition for youth guitarists under the age of 18, which is always extraordinarily popular. Last time around we had over like 70 applicants, which was really fantastic, and especially around the area here, especially in Virginia and Loudoun County and Fairfax County and everything like that. We have some of the biggest guitar high school and middle school programs. I believe that, just in those two counties, there's close to like 5,000 guitar students, which is
That's
pretty
crazy.
insane
Yeah, wow.
when you actually think about it. And so, it kind of seemed that one of the things that was kind of lacking in the DC area, at least since I've been here, was that idea of a guitar festival. There was previously a guitar festival many years before I was living here, but then I believe that the director of that moved overseas, and then that kind of ceased. And so, I'd like to kind of think that this festival kind of, picked up the torch, kind of reignited the flame.
It's a great recruitment tool for you, too.
Yeah, it absolutely is, especially now. I mean, one of the things that, we can all kind of talk about and agree on is, the cost associated with going to a 4 year college and everything like that is pretty steep these days.
Mhm.
And, the college that I teach at is a 2 year program, which then people can then transfer and everything. And it's significantly cheaper. It's a good way to recruit students. It's a good way for them to kind of know about the activities that happen at the college. And, most importantly, I think that one of the things is when you go to a place to study, you want to make sure that there's things actually happening there. There's other guitarists who who are there, and they're also achieving things which are in turn going to help them, to motivate them and to push them further along. So yeah, it's absolutely a wonderful recruitment tool as well.
Can you tell us about the Kithara project?
Yes, many years ago, my trio, which consists of Matt Rohde, who was my duo partner at Yale, and then also another close friend of mine from NEC, Adam Levin, we decided to kind of create a nonprofit that was kind of focused on serving underdeserved communities with the guitar. You know, to be perfectly honest with you, I was there during just the beginning stages of it. It just so happened that the time that we were really kind of getting the wheels going on that project. My wife and I, we had our first child, and it just became very difficult to kind of commit as much work as I could into that project. And so, I stepped down from that role, and, I kind of played more of a kind of advisory role. We kind of conceived it with like various different limbs. One of it was, teaching underprivileged kids. And at the moment, there's 3 programs going. There's one in Boston, one in Albuquerque, and one in Mexico City. One of the other kind of ideas was a performance aspect of it as well, which has kind of morphed into this trio, which is called the Great Necks, which is something that we're pretty happy with. And, we really kind of push the boundaries of what kind of guitar music is. And, we've been doing arrangements of, kind of large symphonic works and stuff like that on 3 guitars, which get, I'll be honest with you, some mixed reviews. Some people love it. Some people are like, this is the worst idea you can possibly do for 3 guitars. No, and that's one of the things that we actually love about it, is that it does create kind of opinions by people. And, all 3 of us, we're the sorts of guys that don't like to be too agreeable, I guess, and just kind of just play nicely and everything. We like to kind of stir it up a little bit.
Yeah, but listen, the fact of the matter is, you guys reached number 10 on the classical Billboard charts. So people could say whatever they want, but you guys showed them up.
It was a really great thing for us. I think when that came out, I think that we were the first kind of classical guitarists to hit Billboard in I think it was like maybe 15 years.
It's crazy.
And so we were really, really pleased with that. And we got some really great reviews, and, we definitely reached a different audience, which we were really looking forward to. It's always great playing, I mean, or maybe it's not so great always playing in front of an audience where like half of the crowd is, kind of just looking at you, criticizing what you're doing, and the other half is like just thinking to themselves, well, if I was up there, I would be doing better. Um, and so it was really wonderful to kind of reach a different audience. And through it, we got a bunch of gigs and concerts from groups that, like, we never thought we would have been kind of playing for. We had a really kind of massive season lined up, and then obviously everything got cut, because of the pandemic, which was a shame, just as we were kind of really kind of gaining momentum. But, hopefully when everything gets fixed up, we can kind of get that train rolling again. So it's always wonderful to get really kind of thoughtful, negative criticism. I know that whenever we got like a review, we would be like, oh no, like this is like a terrible review. And I remember one of the reviewers, his review was like so thoughtful. It wasn't the most pleasant, but I actually wrote him a message afterwards, and I thanked him for like the very thoughtful review. And I asked him, I just said, is there anything maybe that you think would satisfy you for our next CD? And, he actually wrote back a list of things. And I actually wrote him back, and I said, well, unfortunately, we won't be playing any of those. And and we actually have a really kind of quirky friendship. He'll message me every now and then, just be like, hey, what are you guys working on now, and everything like that. So it's always good to kind of push the boundaries and do things that people like, do things that might put people on edge. And I think at the end of the day, it's just kind of trying to make people feel human. I think is the main thing, rather than like just always trying to get them to sit down and just listen to something pleasant and make them smile, like make them feel anxious, make them feel anger, make them feel joy, make them feel kind of hatred, make them feel elation. That's what music's all about. So
Creating controversy. It's great.
exactly.
So we do hope that it picks up where you left off right after the pandemic. But in the meantime, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
It kind of does feel a little bit like Groundhog Day at the moment. I've been doing a lot of online teaching. My daughter's in kindergarten, and so, she's doing homeschooling and everything like that, 4 days a week. So while she's doing homeschooling, just kind of making sure that my other kid isn't being too crazy. There's been a lot of brainstorming, I guess, during the pandemic, kind of thinking about what's next, thinking about what our next steps are going to be. Got Actually, believe it or not, this month for me is actually going to be quite crazy. I've got a couple of video projects. I've got a couple of virtual concerts coming up. I've got a couple of videos which I'm submitting to certain places. My trio, we're actually recording another album next month, so a lot of kind of the past few months has been preparing for that. And one of the strange things about this, because we've been quite separate, especially just us in general. I mean, I live here in Maryland, Adam lives in Boston, and Matt lives in Mexico. So, I mean, we haven't rehearsed yet together, but, it's given us like a different kind of approach of how we learn and how we also can do somehow rehearsals virtually. Like, I'll usually send a video of my part to the guys, and they'll actually play along with it and stuff like that. So, a lot of kind of brainstorming, a lot of, trying to figure out how to kind of stay relevant in this kind of current pandemic, and then also how to stay relevant, post-pandemic. So we've got some pretty cool ideas. It's just a matter of time and just waiting until everything gets better to execute all of those ideas.
And you will record in the same studio when you get together?
Yes. We're doing everything like really safely. We're isolating 2 weeks beforehand. We're all taking COVID tests before. We're taking COVID tests when we arrive all together. We're all staying in separate accommodations. When we meet up, we've got a big rehearsal space set up where we're all going to be wearing masks, and there's going to be plexiglass between us and everything. So, we're making sure we do everything absolutely kind of by the book. And, safety is, honestly, especially at this time, safety is our biggest concern. We were really committed to kind of getting this done within this time frame. So
Is that because the record label required this of you?
it was a couple of things, actually. I mean, one of the members of the group is just about to have their first child in April, so we did want to kind of finish it before then. But this project has already been pushed back a fair few times, and it was definitely like a difficult decision to kind of make. Like, I mean, it would be amazing if we could just wait until everything is back to normal. But I think that all of us, we all agree, and that we are taking like really kind of crazy precautions. I mean, since March, the only place that I ever go is out to go shopping like once every 2 weeks. It's been pretty kind of, martial law here at our house in terms of going out and everything. So we have.
Well, Sami, do you want to go on to the second espresso, or do you want me to keep asking Scott a few more questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah.
So you have a very impressive bio. You have a ton of degrees. Can you actually name all of your degrees?
Yeah. So I've got a Bachelor of Creative Arts with first class honors, Masters of Music, Artist Diploma, and a DMA.
Now, do you get upset when people don't call you Dr. Borg?
No. I actually get upset when people do call me doctor. I mean,
Okay.
I would love it if I could have the MD initials on my license plate, and so I could park anywhere I wanted. I grew up with some incredible teachers, starting in Australia, Chris Keane, Greg Pickler, and then in America, Sharon Isbin, Ben Verdery, and Elliot Fisk. And, one of the things that I always admired about every single one of them was that there was this kind of, of course there was this teacher-student relationship, like there was no question about that, but also there was this idea that we were also kind of colleagues, and, they respected me as a human. In turn, I feel as if that, with all of my students, I've kind of do the same at the beginning. I'm not like, oh, welcome to guitar, I'm Dr. Borg or anything like that. Like, I mean, I definitely don't do that. I'm like, hey, my name is Scott, just call me that. I've got a couple of students who do call me Dr. Borg, and I'm like, hey, hold off with the doctor, but they still insist on calling it, and which is it's a very nice sign of respect, I guess. But if people want to call me that, great. If not, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I don't feel any way about it.
Ready for your second espresso?
Yeah, let's go for it. I feel as if I should have a buzzer here or something like that.
I'll let you know if you're taking too long.
All right.
Boston Guitar Orchestra.
Fun.
Baltimore Classical Guitar Society Orchestra.
I'm gonna say worthwhile.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, the gong at the end. I mean, the gong.
Roland Dyens.
French. French in like the way that like everything about it is French.
Andrew York.
I'm gonna say accessible.
Frank Wallace.
I'm gonna say thoughtful.
Ronnie DeRidis.
Academic.
Sharon Isbin.
I'm gonna say human.
Benjamin Verdery.
Oh, I'm gonna say the jokester.
Montgomery College.
Place of work? I don't know.
Yale University.
I mean, I'm just gonna say good times. Like, I mean, there's nothing else I can say about like, I mean, just incredible memories.
The Juilliard School.
Eye-opening.
New England Conservatory.
I'm gonna say rethinking.
Boston.
Wish I had spent more time there.
Australia.
A really long plane flight.
Maryland.
Strange weather.
The Wallabies.
Ah, I can't say the greatest team in the world because like for some reason I've always been a Welsh supporter. But yeah, I'll say the greatest team in the world. Well, no, I can't say that because then there's the All Blacks and I'm just no, that was the wrong answer. That was just give me a red X when it comes to that answer for sure.
Sarah Schramborg.
No words can express.
Scott Borg.
Tired.
All right. Always or these days?
Oh, just always, mate. Like I feel as if that, you know, ever since I moved to America, what is it? It's been nearly like 20 years now. You know, I still haven't like fixed up my clock. I mean, you know, I'm still like wide awake at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's just crazy. You know, I feel as if I'm still running on Australian time. So
Fair enough.
So you touched on this earlier about NFL versus Australian football players. Who is tougher, would you say, between the two leagues?
it's a different tough. I mean, you know, I kind of feel as if that in rugby, when it comes to tackling, like there's so much technique involved with the tackling because if there's not that technique there, like you're gonna be concussed, like no matter what. And you know, I feel as if like you know with American football because they do have the helmets and the pads and everything like that. There's just no backing down of what they do. My favorite NFL player is Brady. There's no question about
I'm
that.
with you.
You know, just like what an absolute genius. Like, I mean, not only just like a great quarterback, his ability to like read the field and everything like that, and just his precision is just like, it's just phenomenal. And, you know, I had so many chances to go and watch him play, and I wish I did, and I never did. And I'm kicking myself for not going to see him play. You know, so much like brilliance in so many aspects of NFL. And I couldn't imagine ever being able to do anything like that. It's just two completely different things. I mean, if we were talking about like the difference between, say, cricket and baseball, you know, I would say hands down, like cricket is the far superior sport. Although I remember my very first experience of baseball was at Fenway. Somehow my wife got us these really fantastic seats right behind home plate. And it was one of those games where I had no idea how important this game was, and it was like the bottom of the eighth, and both of the pitchers were pitching a no hitter, and I of course had a bit too many drinks, and you know of course I stood up and like screamed out some obscenity, like including like hit the ball or something like that, and of course the next pitch the no hitter was ruined, and oh my gosh,
Because
like
of you?
I mean, that's what like, you know, 80,000 Red Sox supporters thought because, you know, I was lucky to make it out of there alive. Australians are very passionate about their sports, and rugby and cricket are definitely two of them.
What's your reaction when you see the haka?
I always feel intimidated. You know, I mean, the All Blacks are just an incredible just machine. It's very, very rare that they're ever beat.
Argentina beat them for the first time in their history this year.
I know. I saw that. It was a really really incredible game. I was actually watching that. It would always make me upset whenever the All Blacks would do the haka because then Australia's kind of like war dance was us singing Waltzing Matilda, which was like the biggest anticlimax ever. And it was such a disappointment in my mind. I kind of felt as if that we should have had some form of tribal dance. But like, I mean, if Australia was going to have some form of tribal dance, it was probably going to be a convict dance or something like that, of like robbers and murderers or something like that.
Now it's time to listen to an excerpt of an arrangement Scott did of Finlandia by John Sibelius, performed by his guitar trio, the Great Necks. Talking to Scott about this arrangement, he told us the stir it caused when he presented it to his trio mates and gave a new perspective on the possibilities of guitar trio.
Let's move on to a little bit of a fantasy world now, Scott. Let's
Yeah.
say you won $100 million in the lottery. What would you do with that money other than become Tom Brady's neighbor?
It's actually a pretty easy answer because, I think all of us will always kind of think of that at some stage. Obviously I would do things to like set up my immediate family. There's no question about that. Honestly, the rest of it, I would want to put up buildings everywhere to help homeless people. And, to figure out ways to help them kind of live and support themselves and, get out of whatever rut they're in. Just try to do good in the world. One of my biggest frustrations is that extraordinarily rich people in the world, and there's so much good that they could be doing, and they just don't. And that, it really frustrates me a lot, and I kind of wish that, just like people would be more willing to help others. I would absolutely just try to put up building complexes everywhere where there's a homeless problem and get a roof over their head, give them food, give them back a sense of kind of worth
Mhm.
and help them get job training and stuff like that. Like, I think that would be an incredible thing to do.
And with the reminder, 5 million.
I would actually buy a Ferrari. Look,
Okay.
I'm not gonna give everything away. Like, I mean, I've got to buy a
Got it.
Ferrari. It wouldn't be a massive house because then, massive house means a lot of cleaning and also a lot of junk inside it. Something I would help set up my family, my brothers, which would be very nice.
What's
You
the
know,
strangest animal you've eaten? Have you eaten a kangaroo?
oh yeah, I've eaten a kangaroo. It's very gamey, like really
Hmm.
tough. Kangaroos are just like nothing but muscle. That was a really peculiar taste, and actually on that same night I also ate camel,
Oh wow.
which
How do
was
they compare?
camel's very fatty. If I'm going to be honest with you, nothing beats a great steak, but I really wasn't a fan of either of them.
Where was this restaurant?
I was actually in the outback in Australia, and Sarah and I went on like a tour and we saw like Uluru and the Olgas and everything like that, and we slept under the stars in these tents. It was like a group of us, about like 12 of us, and the guy who was showing us everything, we had like an open fire kind of camp thing, and he like kind of cooked up some kangaroo and camel for us.
I know where he got the kangaroo, but like, where would you get the camel?
Oh, so actually, fun fact: Australia is overrun by camel. I think that many years ago, like especially so much desert in Australia. I think it's something like 73% desert,
Wow.
or like kind of really arid. They brought over a bunch of camels and just kind of let them roam free. And there's no kind of natural predators for camels in Australia, so they've just like kind of overrun them. So, you know, last I heard, and it was like many years ago, I think that Australia was actually selling back camels to like the Middle East and everything like that, and Northern Africa.
Hmm.
A lot of camels.
Why no one talks about them?
I don't know. No idea. People think Australia, dangerous spiders, dangerous snakes, kangaroos, koalas, platypus, crocodiles. And I mean, you're not going to add in camels into the mix. I mean, it just doesn't really kind of have that same ring.
Hmm. So Scott, let's talk about your fingernails real quick.
Yeah.
How do you keep them nice and polished? Do you do it yourself? Does Sarah help you? Do you get manicures? Let's delve into this.
It's kind of funny. I'm still always experimenting with my fingernails. I did not have fingernails until I got to Juilliard, which was like
Hmm.
hilarious. As a classical guitarist to not have fingernails is pretty crazy. But, I grew up playing guitar without nails. And then during high school, I kind of, they're like, hey, my teachers were like, hey, you need to have some nails. And so of course, I used to put on fake nails, which was always very popular at school, and I never got bullied for it ever. But now it's like a constant kind of battle having the nails exactly the way you want them. Just today, like I'm recording on the weekend, and I broke one of my nails today getting out a sled so my kids could like sled today. But anyway, and it's just like constant keeping kind of check of them. I do a lot of things like opening car doors and everything like that, opening just like doors in general. I do that with my left hand. I never kind of run the risk of like breaking a nail, because breaking a nail is like, as like a tuba player, I'm assuming that if you lose a tooth or something like that, it's going to have a massive effect. When it does come to nails, I'm actually quite relaxed. I know a lot of people are very kind of pedantic about it. I'll only really kind of start to take care of my nails if I've got an important rehearsal or a performance coming up. Usually I'm just like, whatever it sounds like. I mean, I very rarely practice on my good guitar anyway. I usually practice on like this terrible $50 guitar. And so my kind of idea is that if I can make that sound good, I can make my good guitar sound really good. So,
Yep. So Scott, what gives you fear?
I mean, I'm going to say my kids. The fear of anything going wrong with them. The fear that I'm doing something wrong as a parent as well. For me, at least, one of the scariest things.
Well, knowing you and Sarah, they're in great hands. You can help so much, but then what the future holds for them is a little bit out of your reach.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the most important things is wanting to do right, that they understand the skills and, the morality and what they need to do to be good people. I think that at the end of the day, that everyone's always going to wish success, for their kids and everything like that. For me, it's more about that they're just going to be happy and good people, whatever they do.
Nice. What gives you hope?
It's a tough question, especially what's been happening in not only America but in the world the past few years. It's kind of been difficult to see the forward progress of humanity, I guess. I think that the thing that gives me hope is the idea that like people can still like look at each other and just smile. People can still be kind to one another, and I think that through kindness that blooms hope.
What inspires you?
I think nature inspires me. Just recently, I've gotten into kind of stargazing. I got a telescope for my birthday to try to watch the whole Jupiter Saturn thing, which was pretty awesome. And discovering the unknown, being able to, fulfill ideas that you never thought, you were able to fulfill. One of the things was that, I always wanted to see Jupiter, and I got to see it, and that was so inspirational.
The cool thing is our kids are going to be able to go to Mars. I mean, if you think
Oh, I
about that.
know. Yeah, I know that Sarah's pretty horrified about that just because there's all those movies about someone like being left behind or someone going on a spaceship and they're on like a 40-year journey where they're all iced up or something like that, and then all of a sudden they wake up and they're alone. Pretty amazing to think where civilization's going to be in like 30 or 40 years. But mind you, I remember back in the 90s, everyone was saying that in the year 2000 we're going to have flying cars. And so,
Exactly.
I'm not sure where that happened, where they kind of messed up there. So who knows?
A lot of people want to know what kind of instrument our musicians play on. So, what kind of guitar do you play on?
Got two main guitars. Got a six-string guitar, which is made by Stephen Connor, who's a guitar maker
Hmm.
in Cape Cod. It's like a spruce and Madagascar. It's a really spectacular instrument, and that one was made specifically for me, which was really wonderful. I remember I've been in contact with Steve for probably like close to a decade before I actually bit the bullet and actually bought one. And I would always go to his workshop and I would be like, oh, I love this aspect of this guitar and I love this aspect of this guitar and everything like that. And he had written it all down and I said, okay, I'm ready to buy a guitar. And he's like, okay, I've got all of your specs ready to go. So that's the first one. And then the other guitar, which I've been playing a lot lately, is an 8-string guitar by a Canadian maker, Jeff Sigurison. I've been doing that a lot in my trio just to get an extra additional octave in depth. And actually, I've been doing a lot of solo arrangements as well. I'm actually embarking on a pretty ambitious project at the moment. I'm trying to arrange Carmina Burana for solo guitar, which is pretty crazy actually. But it's working out quite well. So those are my two main instruments. I do have another instrument, a Greg Smallman, which is just brilliant. Looking to sell it, so if there's any of the listeners on the market, just give me a call.
Hmm.
Yeah. Follow us on social media, write to us, and we'll put you in touch with Scott.
Absolutely. That's always a great guitar to get out as well. It's an Australian guitar, and so I've always got that certain kind of kinship to it.
You said you have an extra octave with the eighth string. Is that lower or higher?
Lower, yeah, yeah, yeah. So most people with 8 strings or 10-string guitars, they'll usually only tune those lower strings to be kind of sympathetic with the tonic or the dominant, just to hit those
Hmm.
notes every now and then. I like to use it where I can utilize all of the different notes. So at the moment, I've got those 2 strings tuned down so low that I've got an entire new octave below, which is it's very low sounding. It's kind of playing an instrument with like a subwoofer, which is pretty awesome. I did have a choice of maybe getting one with one lower string and one upper string, but it was like trying to climb Mount Everest with no arms or something like that. I mean, it was just the most mind boggling thing I've ever done in my life. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. So, and a lot of people do it successfully, and just my mind doesn't function in that way at all.
Can you tell us something that most people don't know about you?
When I was a kid, the first concert I ever gave was to my cows. And one of the great things about it is that, whenever I would get out my guitar and go out the backyard and play, you'd see all the cows from at the back run up and just come and listen to me play, which was incredible. It would be marvelous. They have such expressive eyes, and their tongues will be going up their noses and everything like that. It was beautiful. And actually, I had a pet cow that I was very close to. Its name was Moss Scott. So its mum was Mossy, and my name's Scott, and so it was a combination, Moscot. And it came time for Moscot to go to a new farm, a new pasture, and everything like that. And so I waved goodbye to it, with tears in my eyes and everything. And then a couple of weeks later, we were eating all of this delicious meat from our fridge. Many years later, my parents told me that the delicious meat that I was actually eating was my pet cow.
Oh no.
So
Oh
Oh,
my god.
I didn't know that that story was going to take that turn.
Oh wow.
Wow.
I think I was probably vegetarian for like maybe one day, and then my parents just brought out another steak, and I was like, all right, it's too delicious.
Due to all your beautiful music.
Yeah, well, that's what I like to think. It was very cultured.
So, Scott, what's your 5 year plan? Are you a planner or you take it day by day?
I always liked to have the idea of a plan. Growing up until I was married and everything like that, I was always a person that would do everything like kind of whatever happens, happens. And, I would be the person that always used to finish an assignment the morning of. Now I've become like a really big planner in like trying to make sure that got things way in advance. Like whenever I know I've got to go somewhere to do a performance like the next year, I'll like go ahead and book my flight immediately. I always like to know exactly kind of what's going on. I think that deep down inside, as musicians, we all have that dream of being more successful. It doesn't matter how much success we have, there's always that series that we want to play on. There's always that concert we always want to do. There's always those other musicians who we want to play with. So a lot of my plans kind of revolve around those ideas. As a guitarist, most of us grew up knowing about these beautiful kind of collaborations between like Paco de Lucia and John McLaughlin. And we all want to kind of emulate that. We all want to have like a festival which turns into a really great meeting of wonderful geniuses and minds where people look back and be like, oh my gosh, this was like such like a golden age where kind of guitar thought was really picking up. In 5 years, I would love to be more financially secure than I currently am. I think that it's no surprise that a lot of people in the arts at the moment are really suffering. Fortunately for me, Sarah has such an incredible job with the military band that, we haven't been hit that hard. When it comes to the music world, I guess we are one of the very lucky ones. But, I think one of the things that this pandemic has especially shown musicians and artists that we probably do need to have a plan. We probably do need to be thinking about where we want to be 5 years down the track and 10 years down the track and have like a plan B, a way of being able to kind of live comfortably. I think a lot of it is just based on these kind of like little hallmarks and benchmarks of success that we all put on ourselves. And, I would love to play on like a bunch of different music series that aren't guitar related. I'd love to somehow tap in to the idea that the guitar can be a serious chamber music instrument, which I believe it is. And I believe that if we're somewhat granted an opportunity to kind of show that off, people will be able to see that. You mentioned we got number 10 on Billboard. I mean, it would be great. I mean, who doesn't want to be number one on Billboard? Like, I mean, who doesn't want to be nominated for a Grammy? Everyone wants that. A lot of the goals, I guess are kind of wanting to move towards that. I think that one of the wonderful things is that, I think all of us, and we've seen a lot of our colleagues achieve these goals. It makes us kind of believe that a lot of these goals are very worthwhile and they are attainable.
Yep, absolutely. So we're reaching the end of the show. Is there anything else you would like to share that we haven't talked about so far?
I mean, I'm an open book. I'll talk about anything. One of my favorite sayings from the questions you asked me before is that, I'll talk until the cows come home. So one thing that I do want to actually share, especially for musicians who are out there, and I think that we can all attest to this. One of the great things about being a musician is that it's a tough life. It's a tough job. It's a tough lifestyle. And I think that one of the great things for me as a guitarist, I know that I'll never be poor. Like, I know that if I'm ever struggling, I can just teach more people because, like, everyone will always want to play guitar. I know that if I need food, I can just, well, not now. I would go to a restaurant and just say, hey, how about I play for 2 hours and you give me a meal? And I've done that many, many times, especially during undergrad. When I was living in New York after I finished school, I was working in Midtown and I was living up in Washington Heights. I would practice guitar on the train ride. People thought I was busking, and so like people would give me some money and I would use that to buy lunch. I think that one of the things about being a musician is that, you're never going to be rich, but you're also never going to be poor. There is ways to be comfortable, but it's a hard slog. One of the things that I always do, and I know that this is going to sound pretty terrible as like an educator, but one of the things that I always say to my students when they're like, hey, I want to go and continue doing study at a higher level, the first thing I'm like is like, I always say, is this what you really want to do? Because,
Hmm.
if it's something that you want to make a career out of, sure, go for it. If it's something that you love doing, you don't need a degree to continue doing this. Like, you can do it just for the love of it. And then you can do something else to make sure that, you are reaching those kind of like financial goals which you may want to reach. The reason why I say that is because I think that one of the things that I was always told kind of growing up is like, oh my gosh, you can be like a world-class performer. You can like travel the world just playing music and not doing anything else. And I think that, now we all realize that that's never going to happen. Like, even for like, the select few, like they still have to supplement their lives with other means. Like, I mean, I think of some of my former teachers who were just absolutely incredible and still performing like all over the world, but, yet to kind of get by for what their lifestyle needs to be. There's still a lot of other things that they need to do, whether it's like teaching or anything like that as well.
Yeah, just being resourceful.
Yep.
Yeah, and just kind of, just kind of getting your hands in as many pots as possible. And, and I think that one of the most important other things is like really cultivating all of the relationships you have with people. I'm not sure about what language filters you have on here, but like,
Try us.
no one likes an asshole. That's the truth. Like, nobody likes an asshole. So, don't be a jerk. You know, I remember that, and I think that all of us have probably experienced this. I remember meeting musicians who were like completely up themselves, and I mean, I just like, well, I won't be hanging out or hiring that person. Just be nice. Like I mean, sure, you can be critical and and everything like that, but just don't be a jerk about it. A lot of this field is the relationships you build, and especially the relationships you build at like festivals and during study and everything like that. Like, I mean, I know that a majority of the concerts and the contacts I have are from people that I've met at festivals who were first my competitors and then became friends and then colleagues, and now people who I rely on a lot.
So where can people find you on social media?
I'll be honest with you, I don't have too much of a social media presence. One of the things that my trio is trying to do is try to get a bit more of a social media following. We are on Instagram, The Great Necks. We are on Facebook as well. We also have a website, thegreatnecks.com. Hopefully soon, I'm going to be trying to, like, especially when I get out some more of my 8-string stuff, I'm going to be hopefully trying to get more of an individual online presence. I think that we all agree that social media is one of these evils that we must all kind of adhere to. It's a part of the musical climate, and it's something that we all need to do, and it's something that we all need to be better at.
Can't wait to listen to that Carmina Burana.
It's going to be pretty wild. It's a big work in progress, and by May, hopefully I'll have at least half of it done, which would be quite nice. I think hopefully it's going to turn some heads, which is one of the things that, obviously I'm looking for, but obviously I hope that people will be able to look at it and be like, hey, this is actually a valuable contribution to the guitar world.
Scott, listen, we know your wife Sarah has an upcoming birthday, so from Sami and I want to wish her a happy birthday.
Yeah, I'll definitely pass that along. Yeah, she's turning. I really shouldn't tell her age. Like, I mean, she'll
No,
probably.
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
she'll kill you. She'll
Yeah,
put a hit
yeah,
on you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, I'll definitely be sleeping on the couch
Mm-hmm.
if I say that.
Or outside, and you'll be
Nice.
serenading
Oh
some
yeah,
cows.
exact. Outside actually is probably a more appropriate option there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Scott, so much for joining us down the pit. It was awesome talking to you, catching up after all these years, and wish you all the best with all these projects and everything that is coming up for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful, touching base with you guys. Like, I mean, I remember very, very happy memories at Yale with both of you. And I mean, people ever will say to me, what were two of your happiest years? It was absolutely that time. It was magnificent. I feel honored to like chat to you guys again, and I feel very happy about everything. So wonderful chatting with you both.
The pleasure is all ours.
Thanks so much for sticking around until the end and allowing us to be a part of your day. We don't have all the solutions to the world's problems, but classical music for sure can help solve a few of them. Please follow us on social media, and we cannot wait for you to join us next time.